Hey witches! Just getting over a cold, nasally sounding Tiffany here on Bewitching.Bemused. This is my second video talking about ancestors. If you didn't watch the first one, it's linked down below in the description box. That one's going to cover the bulk of what you might be looking for, which is why you would want to honor and venerate and work with your ancestors and how to do so. This second video here is going to be covering the specific topic of dealing with difficult, toxic, possibly abusive, or icky overall problematic ancestors. Working with your deceased relatives, ancestors, and loved ones is a practice that covers pretty much almost every region of the world at some point or another, and it is a practice that has gone back thousands of years. You can reach out to your ancestors and call upon them for guidance, spiritual enlightenment, strength, protection, or even just to get to know them and have their presence in your life. Just like in my last video, but especially in this one, this is a very general topic. I'm not going to really touch on one specific culture. Both that video as well as this one are less about history and more about making the general practice accessible for everybody. And now, working with your ancestors and just honoring them, you don't necessarily have to work directly with them. You could just honor them for the sake of honoring them. But doing so can be difficult when you have ancestors who have a dark or harmful legacy, whether it's a close relative who caused you or other loved ones pain, or maybe it's a distant ancestor who participated in oppressive systems. Working with these spirits can be problematic, uncomfortable at best, painful and unethical at worst. In my last video, I mentioned that you could just simply exclude these people. Yes, that is one tactic, but there are also other approaches to tackling this issue. The first one is to set boundaries, kind of like I mentioned in the last video. You are under no obligation to include every ancestor, whether that is in venerating them or working directly with them. Just as you might avoid harmful people in your day-to-day life, you can do that with spirits as well. An easy way to go about this is to explicitly state in your ritual space in a general sense that you only welcome ancestors who bring love, wisdom, and guidance. You could kind of ritualize this, light a candle, and say something like, I honor the lineage I come from, but I invite only those ancestors who support my growth and align with my values to join me here. If you want to go so far as to name names, you can. You could do this every time you put out offerings for ancestors, or you request their help, or you pray to them, meditate on them, or you could just kind of put it out there occasionally. Just say it again as a refresher, yo, just as a reminder, stay the fuck out. Whatever works best with your practice. On the flip side of that, you could focus on the honorable ones. You don't have to cast a wide net out to every ancestor ever and then be like, except the bad ones. You could just call on specific people whose names that you know. In working, this would be very similar to calling upon a specific deity, or even maybe 2 or 3 deities, to partake in your offering or asking for their assistance in a working, versus just inviting the whole pantheon to come enjoy the buffet. There's lots of different reasons why people may not know who their ancestors are. And I did cover it in my last video where ancestors don't just have to be your bloodline. If you're adopted, it might be the line up your adopted family or both. And it could also be other peers, friends, pets that have passed away, cultural heroes, archetypes, spiritual ancestors as well. That's another good one. And there's more information on them in my previous video. So if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to all of these faceless, potentially nameless, ancestors from centuries back who could have been a long line of slave owners, then you could just name specific people that you wish to work with and call upon them instead. Another option is ancestral accountability if you feel like taking that on. Do not feel like you necessarily are responsible for the legacy the harm, the abuse caused by previous generations. For ancestors who caused harm, you can, if you so choose, use your practice to address and transform that energy that they represent. This could involve rituals of healing, forgiveness, if you feel ready, of course, or even confrontation. In doing this, you are both acknowledging the wrongdoing and the pain that they caused, while also affirming your commitment to breaking those cycles of harm in your own life. But again, as long as you are not doing these things in your life, this is not necessarily your responsibility. So if that's not a load that you want to bear, it's okay. If you are interested, a small ritual you may want to try is to light a candle. It could be for justice, it could be for healing, forgiveness, kind of however you choose to approach it. And say something like, I see the harm you caused, and I choose to do better. May this light guide your spirit toward accountability and healing. We often focus on what relationships with spirit, like regardless of type of spirit, whether that's land spirits, deity, ancestors, etc. We mostly focus on what they can do for us, and we don't often consider what we can do for them beyond building a relationship, putting out some offerings on a platter, maybe doing some deeds in their name. There's more to it than that. I'm definitely oversimplifying it, and those things are wonderful, don't get me wrong. The question is, can we help the deceased evolve? I don't know. I don't have the answers for that. I have my own beliefs, but I'm also an agnostic pagan, so I'm very open-minded with that sort of thing. I don't know for sure what happens after we die. I'm not going to pretend that I do, and nobody does. However, I know that I personally hope that those who primarily suffered from the ignorance of their time can, over time, and through observation of our changing world and changing society, and with us leading by example, we can help change them for the better. Who says death has to stop you from learning? So rather than offering them reverence, you can offer them space for reflection and change. You can kind of offer them the opportunity to be better. So instead of you praying to them and giving them offerings, asking for guidance, you can offer to give them guidance if they want it. Like I said, this is not everybody's burden to bear. No problem with that. It's not your responsibility. As long as you are leading a better life, then you don't have to worry about it. Just focus on improving yourself, right? However, this type of ancestral work can be a great way to address ancestral generational trauma as well as generational curses. It can help to bring those energies in the past into balance and then clear the path for not only yourself but future generations, your own growth, their own growth, everybody continuing to strive to do and be better. So that's just another option. I kind of touched on this already, but you could also focus on collective ancestors. So if you're looking to cast a wide net, a broad net, you can't necessarily name names, but maybe it's just your family line is not where you want to focus, then you could choose cultural, spiritual, or your professional communities, the people who helped pave the way for you. That kind of helps you honor where you come from and the people who brought you to where you are now, but you also get to kind of bypass like toxic family dynamics. That's also a really great option for people who were maybe adopted, maybe they don't know their bloodline. Just always remember that family is what you make of it. We have our found families just as much as we have our blood families, and ancestor work, it touches on all of that. Finally, you could choose to honor the complexity. Recognize that people are rarely all good or all bad. There are good people who do bad things. There are bad people who do good things. If you feel drawn to engage with a flawed ancestor or flawed ancestors, do so with clear eyes. Again, you don't have to take on the burden of healing them and guiding them to enlightenment if you don't choose to do so. But you could also, still recognize them, without, you know, being like, what you did was not, it was fine, whatever. You can choose to honor the parts of their legacy that were constructive while, you know, rejecting the harm that they caused. It's a very nuanced approach that can help you reclaim your lineage on your own terms. I'm sure I am not the only person that in my regular life, in my living life with other living, non-deceased people, I have very nuanced, complicated relationships with some people. There are ones that I have chosen to go no contact with, either based on the way that they have treated me or the way that they have treated others. But there are other people where it's not that easy, or the bad is bad, but maybe the good outweighs that. And oh gosh, it's a constant balancing act, and it changes over time, and it's very complicated. So working with your ancestors doesn't necessarily mean that you're excusing the harm that they may have caused, or ignoring history, or even enabling toxicity. Now, you may disagree with me on that, and you know what? I accept that. That's totally fine. That's a big reason why with this list, I wanted to provide a variety of ways for you to tackle this issue, because it's not something that's easy to talk about. I'm sure for a lot of people, myself included, their family history is shrouded in mystery because they just don't know their family line. It only goes back so far. There's not much of a record. So whichever option that you choose, just know that it is more about consciously choosing how you move forward and what you as a person, a currently living person, leave behind. That's the most important thing. It is just important for you to set boundaries in whatever way works for you, hold space for accountability, and focus on healing. And in doing so, you can honor your lineage while also staying true to your values and your spiritual goals. Thanks so much for watching. And once again, if you didn't catch that first video, it is linked right here. See you guys later.